Can everyone see okay?
Yep.
So I can start by sharing a little bit more about me and then Hack Club. I'm actually I'll give the abridged version of the talk that I was asked to give yesterday, which is why I'm out here. And that'll give a bit of background, and they can really dig into how Hack Club works and like what it feels like as a student and kind of the long-term goal here. And then happy to talk about like the boot camp situation and the U.S. and kind of what high schools are like and colleges are like. Because some of the stuff you're talking about, lack of programmers, is very much a thing that the United States is feeling right now. And there's just very little support for the government in trying to make that happen. And I'm kind of curious to learn more about what it's like here as well. So my story starts in 2003. I'm 5 years old, and while all of my friends and all the other kids are outside on their skateboards, I am in my parents' living room. I've taken out the family's computer. I'd taken off the side panel, and I was slowly taking it apart. I so desperately wanted to know how computers worked from like day one. But then my parents walked in, and what I hear is, "What the hell are you doing?" And I just wanted to know how this thing worked. I thought that if I could figure out how computers worked, I would unlock the secrets of the universe. But for them, I was taking apart the one computer and probably breaking the one computer that they could use to respond to work emails. So I frantically try to put it back together. I click the on button and nothing happens. I quickly, frantically take it apart. I figure I must have like missed one wire, put it back together again, turn it on, and thank God it turns on. I promise never to do anything like that ever again. I definitely do not keep that promise, but that's how I got started. That was my obsession. So I grew up in a small town in Los Angeles. It's called El Segundo. This is like the town. LA is like way over there. And I had a very typical American and almost Midwestern upbringing. There are two industries in the town. So that's the town itself. It's about a mile by mile square. The south of the town is bordered by an oil refinery. And it's actually what the town was named after. So most of my friends' parents worked here. And then on the right, there's a one Air Force base that's in Los Angeles. So growing up, it almost felt like you were growing up in like Illinois or somewhere else in the Midwest because you're so shut off from the rest of Los Angeles. And I always just felt like a misfit. I played baseball, I did all of the other things that youth in the town did, but I always felt like I was a character in someone else's narrative because all I wanted to do was learn how computers worked. But I really struggled to find support for that, whether through schools, whether through my parents. I didn't know any programmers. I didn't realize you could do this stuff as a job. I thought it was just something people did in their free time on the internet. So fast forward to 2010, I'm 12 years old. I've built my first computer. I have awesome hair. I'm very fashionable, as you can see. But most importantly, I've discovered the internet. And every night I'd go home and I would do my schoolwork, and then I would spend hours teaching myself how to code. And being a kid, I was particularly excited about like making games. I really wanted to learn how to make games. So there are two programming languages I was learning. There's Ruby, which all of you know, and like Ruby was all about making websites. I wanted to know, how do you make Twitter? How do you make GitHub? How do these sites work? And then the other language I was really excited about learning was one called Graal script, which was a variant of JavaScript that was made specifically for this game called Graal that I was obsessed with. Now the way Graal worked was, it's a massively multiplayer online game. So you are one of these characters that you can customize, and then you go in the world, and every single one of these other characters is another player in real time that's playing with you. And then you have conversations. There's not really a plot, there aren't quests or anything like that. The game is about meeting other people and just talking. And what happens is people form these social groups that they call guilds, and different guilds had different level of prestige. So I worked my way into the most prestigious guild of them all, which was called Zanza. It was ran by one of the admins, and administrators in this game are totally worshipped. So one night, I'm talking to other people in Zanza, I'm teaching myself Graal script, and then one of the administrators, his name is Exor, comes up and approaches me and says, "Lord of Pi 13, which was my username at the time, do you want to help make the game? Do you want to become an administrator? Do you want to not just write your code in isolation, but actually deploy it and have real users?" And that changed everything for me. Because in Graal, at almost any given moment, there's over 1,000 people online. So when you make something, whether it's a new level or whether it's like a new mini game for the game, suddenly literally the moment you launch it, you have hundreds of people using it. If it's bad, people will tell you that it's bad. If it's good, people love it and talk about it not just inside the game, but on Twitter and all the other social platforms. And really, you build something, there'd be thousands of people that would use it. And this was incredible because suddenly it no longer felt like I was building things in isolation. I mean, up until this point, programming was an interest, but again, I didn't realize this was something you could do long term. I didn't realize this was a thing lots of people did. I didn't even realize this was a career. My magnum opus was building a nightclub called Nexus. This is what it looked like on the outside. It was closed 6 out of 7 days of the week. And then the 1 day a week it was open, we would throw these huge, elaborate in-game parties, where each week we'd have a different theme. So one theme might be Midwestern, and everyone would have cowboy hats on, or another might be Irish for St. Patrick's Day. But we'd launch it, and then we'd invite people in, and it's so cool because a ton of people would show up, and then it's really something special that makes something that people want, when you build something, when you release it and people give you feedback on it, that is the most euphoric feeling in the world. And this whole time, Grawl was my 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. activity. And then I'd wake up in the morning, I would open my eyes, barely make it to school on time, rush getting homework done that I didn't do the night before. And it felt like I was almost living 2 different lives. One where I was bored out of my mind in classes, and I just really struggled to find anyone that I was really excited to be around. But the other where I was coming alive, right? Everyone's a username, the possibilities are endless, you're making stuff people want. And I eventually was able to figure out how to enroll in college level courses, but even then it became clear that I needed to drop out. So fast forward to 2014, I'm 16 years old, I've dropped out of high school, and I'm living in the Castro district of San Francisco in this crazy group home with 8 roommates that's perpetually horrifically messy. It was actually really fun making this talk because I was going through all these old photos and I completely forgot about this. But I mean, literally walk in the living room and it'd be like this at any given moment in time. Our garage had been converted into a fancy San Francisco coffee shop, where if you want to buy $5 lattes, they'll be happy to give you one with soy milk or almond milk or whatever type of alternative milk you want. But most importantly, I found the community. I loved my roommates. Everyone was working on super interesting things. Some people were starting companies. Some people were working at different companies. Everyone had really interesting side projects. We would talk about the science fiction that we were excited about. I never met someone before that read science fiction. That was something I didn't realize at the time. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I'd found my tribe. It was also kind of crazy because in 2014, in San Francisco, startups were taking off. I mean, really, it was completely insane. Facebook had just bought Oculus Rift and virtual reality was on the rise. Bitcoin was a thing everyone was starting to get excited about. Everyone was playing Candy Crush. And I was working on a new app called Yo. You remember Yo? Yeah. And so Yo, it was a really dumb app. It was kind of like Facebook Messenger, except or Line, but the only message you could send to people was the word Yo. And we raised $1 million. The company was worth almost $10 million. And when we launched, we became the #1 app on the App Store, and we had over 4 million daily active users. And I was living the dream at the time. I mean, the app was dumb, but I mean, I was making more money than both my parents combined. And we had actual users, right? Like the app is dumb, but again, we had over 4 million daily active users. Not too many apps could say that. And that was a crazy experience. It felt like I was in this huge dichotomy because while I was doing all of this, I was staying in touch with my friends from high school who were preparing for the homecoming dance that was coming up. And sooner than later, my life started to feel like a parody of itself. There were a couple articles that came out, and I realized I was making more money than my parents, but also I was constantly reminded that I was a misfit. I was the person that was on this alternative path, where I would go to the gym, and I once woke up at 5 a.m. with 2 of my roommates. We were going to go to the gym. We were super excited about getting this routine going, and then I was turned away at the door because I was under 18 and I couldn't sign a contract. I went to a hackathon, which was a 24-hour long coding competition. Have any of you been to hackathons before? Yeah. Cool, sweet. I went to one and had this great, amazing experience, but when I tried to leave, they wouldn't let me go because my parents needed to pick me up. But the only problem was my parents lived hundreds of miles away in another city, and I was eventually able to talk them out of letting me leave, but that was after a few hours of like, what the heck is going on?